The 2 3/4 mile Ile Notre Dame circuit for the Canadian Grand Prix is on a man-made island in the St. Lawrence Seaway overlooked by the city of Montreal. Tough on brakes and transmissions, it needs a finely balanced car, a smooth driving technique, and from 5 drivers in particular today, a steady nerve, because the conditions could not be worse. It started raining over an hour ago, it's still pouring down, and the track is awash, slippery and dangerous. And with only 2 events in the 15-race World Championship to go, any one of 5 drivers could still take top honours. They are the leader, Carlos Reutemann, who's a mere 3 points ahead of Nelson Piquet. In 3rd place, reigning world champion Alan Jones, who's retiring this year, and Alain Prost in only his 2nd season of Grand Prix racing. And the 5th man, Jacques Laffite, only 3 points behind. Reutemann can only become world champion today by winning with Piquet lower than 4th. Between them, those 5 have won 10 of this year's 13 Grand Prix, and with 25 points to share between them today, they've all done well in practice for the 70-lap, 192-mile race, except Laffite, who's only 10th. Well, the start's been delayed 1.5 hours because of a row over insurance problems, but there in pole position on the left, Nelson Piquet, and there is the pole position man. 2nd fastest, very critical race for him, World Championship leader Carlos Reutemann. 3rd is Alan Jones and 4th is Alain Prost, but a brilliant 5th place, Nigel Mansell, and in 6th position on the grid, Hector Ribach. So 70 laps, but in these wet conditions, maybe the 2-hour rule will take precedence and the race won't run the full distance. We'll soon know. The lights are red. 70 laps, is it? Nearly 200 miles. And it's go. And Alan Jones comes through. But Reutemann is leading as they go up to the 1st corner. They're round where they had the shunt last year, and as they go through, the 2 Williams cars are absolutely together, and it looks as though everyone is clearing that critical 1st corner in a ball of spray, and Alan Jones leads on lap 1 from Nelson Piquet, Carlos Reutemann, Alain Prost, De Angelis, Hector Ribach, Nigel Mansell, and Pironi spins, and Arnoux is off and into the Armco, and the unfortunate René Arnoux has had yet another Grand Prix destroyed for him almost before the race has begun. Well, the poor little Frenchman who won 2 Grand Prix is out already, and it's Alan Jones. Nelson Piquet in 2nd place, Reutemann is 3rd, Prost is 4th, then De Angelis and Ribach. And with me, as ever, of course, overlooking this sodden circuit, James Hunt.
Well, a good fighting start by Alan Jones, and in fact by Nelson Piquet. They both got off to stormers. Here we're going to see the accident again, and it looked like just a case of overcrowding. Pironi just touched him with the back wheel there, and then Arnoux got away. Unfortunate, really. It was just they were trying to go 3 abreast into that corner. Very difficult conditions, very slippery. You can't really manoeuvre the car very well, and it was really just one of those things. There go the 2 leaders who already opened up quite a large gap.
And as they come into sight, who is the leader going to be? The answer is Alan Jones, and in his wheel tracks with the car sliding on the surface is Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet, number 5, 2nd in the World Championship, and Alan Jones, number 1, 3rd equal in the World Championship with Alain Prost. Coming up now to complete lap 1 with 69 to go if the race runs a full distance. It is Alain Prost in the Renault in 3rd position. Then one of the 2 Lotuses, very difficult to identify. It's De Angelis behind him. Then Carlos Ribach is well up, and they go through, and you can see how appalling the conditions are.
Yes, the big problem is the spray, of course. It's when you get behind one of these cars, you see the great plumes of water coming off all their wheels. You really can't see anything ahead if you're following another car. You just have to try and follow his spray and guess where you are by looking at the side of the track. It's really very difficult indeed. Of course, the guy there leading the race, Alan Jones, is the one person in the race who can see. He has clear visibility. It doesn't appear to be raining at the moment. And I think Jones, I'm surprised to see Jones in the lead, in fact, because the Williams team have a problem on tyres in that they're running larger front wheels, 15-inch diameter, instead of the normal 13 for their dry tyres. They preferred those when they were doing development, and Goodyear don't have any wet tyres made in that size of the very soft sort for the really wet conditions. And they are running more of an intermediate tyre and will be struggling if the track gets wet. He's got a dry line to go on at the moment, but if we have any more rain, it could be a problem for Jones and for Reutemann, of course.
A superb performance by Alan Jones, still struggling with the after effects of that broken finger, and that is Patrick Tambay, Jacques Lafitte's French compatriot, who spun off the circuit in the Talbot Matra. And for an experienced man like him to go off as early as that, it shows how difficult the conditions are. Riccardo Patrese into the pits. I noticed he was last, and I noticed also that Didier Pironi is back in the race and starting to fight his way up through the field in the Ferrari. Jacques Villeneuve is well up too, but there goes the race leader, Alan Jones, coming towards us. He should appear into shot first, and it is. Now you can see the gap between Alan Jones leading a Grand Prix again. A fine performance. This is the gritty Australian's last race but one. He has retired, he will retire at the end of this year. Nelson Piquet is behind him in second place in the Brabham, and then behind Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost, the young Frenchman who has won 3 Grand Prix. There he is in the Renault. Jacques Lafitte is in 4th place. So, Jones coming towards us now on lap 3, leading from Nelson Piquet. Piquet, who is well up in the championship, 2nd position. And you will remember that last year Nelson Piquet led the Canadian Grand Prix on this circuit until his engine blew, and look how Jacques Lafitte in 4th place on the superbly handling Talbot Matra is starting to close up.
Reutemann seems to have dropped back very suddenly, which is significant to me. And yes, Piquet goes through. He just managed to squeeze through. A very good bit of driving by Nelson Piquet. He just managed to nip it past Jones.
And Prost is through into 2nd place, and Alan Jones is, and look at this, Alain Prost is already challenging Nelson Piquet for the lead. The incredible bit of driving. The Frenchman is trying to drive round the outside, and he's done it. Alain Prost takes the lead yet again in a Grand Prix. The man who won, in fact, he's won 3 Grand Prix already this year, including the last one at Italy and the previous one in Holland. He led the British Grand Prix, he led the German Grand Prix, now he's leading here in Canada. And that is Michele Alboreto, the Tyrrell driver, parked alongside the St. Lawrence Seaway, and out of the race, finally, goes Patrick Tambay.
Well, it's raining again now. The track is fully wet, and you see what happened to Alan Jones as soon as it started raining. He's really struggling. He's dropped right back, and I'm beginning to get suspicious. Here comes Villeneuve up into the frame, and he's attacking Piquet. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that Piquet may be on these not so wet tyres, more of an intermediate tyre with a harder compound, a different tread pattern. Anyway, there goes Villeneuve forcing his way through. Piquet not giving him a lot of room, giving him a bit of a hard time, but he was obviously going to get through. But if Piquet is not on the fully wet tyres, and judging by his performance since it rained, you see there's the other cars have gone much quicker, seem to have much more grip. The Renault drove around the outside of him on that corner, getting much more grip. That seems an odd decision, but then it may have been the only reason I think they could have made it is Brabhams might have said on the basis that Williams weren't using the very wet tyres, they might have done it as a defensive decision, but it would seem to be an odd one to me.
Well, hats off to Gilles Villeneuve, because the Ferrari is noted this year for its evil handling, but the wet conditions here at Montreal seem to have evened things out. Plus, of course, the enormous psychological charge that Villeneuve will be getting from the fact that he is driving in front of his French-Canadian home members. And there is Prost leading the race, Alain Prost, and now up into 2nd position, Jacques Lafitte, and they are about to catch and lap Michele Alboreto. But recapping, now on lap 11, it is Alain Prost in the yellow Renault coming up to lap Alboreto. In 2nd place, Lafitte. In 3rd position in the Scarlet Ferrari, and gaining fast, Villeneuve ahead of Piquet.
Yes, Lafitte and Villeneuve look to be the strongest people on the circuit, particularly Lafitte. He's come quietly through up into 2nd place. He's running very easy. In fact, he's having a bit of a go at the Renault. He's having a little crack at Prost. He's alongside, and he couldn't quite do it. He's obviously got to be very careful, because at this stage of the race, he's a possible contender to win the World Championship still, remember, and he certainly doesn't want to put himself or anybody else out of the race at this stage, or take any risks at all.
Jacques Lafitte then climbing all over the turbocharged Renault of his countryman Alain Prost in the 1.5 litre turbocharged Renault, and look how Gilles Villeneuve has caught up. The first three cars absolutely together, and Villeneuve now trying to drive around the outside of Lafitte and take second position, but Johnny Jacques will have nothing of that. Now Prost goes through and laps Alboreto, and Villeneuve tries to take Lafitte, and Alboreto shuts the door on the Frenchman behind him, who has still got... And John Watson is in fourth place, and that is Mario Andretti. I just caught a flash of John Watson very close up in fourth place, the British Grand Prix winner, and Mario Andretti has gone off as Prost and Lafitte lap Riccardo Patrese, who looks as though he's coming into the pits again. Yes, with a broken nose, and in the background, John Watson. And there is less than 5 seconds now covering the first 4 men.
Well, I'm still feeling a bit sorry for the Williams team, who didn't have the proper wet tyres, because the conditions are now obviously quite impossible for them. But at the same time, I have to... That is Alan Jones, is it not, who seems to have had a spin and has gone off the track, obviously struggling very badly with the tyres. But I have to say that while he was out leading the race in the opening laps, when the conditions were vaguely suitable for those tyres, Carlos Reutemann was dropping back in a very unaggressive way, and quite honestly, Reutemann, I think, I've talked about it before on this programme, I think Reutemann was sulking because he hadn't got the right tyres, and really he doesn't compete well when things aren't going right for him, and that really is not a World Championship winning or deserving type performance by Carlos Reutemann, because he patently didn't get stuck in a fight. He dropped straight back, and he's now completely out of touch with the race.
Yes, Carlos Reutemann is back in 15th place, the World Championship leader, right out of contention, and Alan Jones is down in 17th place as Alain Prost leads through with Jacques Lafitte second, Gilles Villeneuve third, and you can see the gap, and you can see John Watson behind them in 4th place. Nelson Piquet is in 5th place, and Didier Pironi, with an incredible drive, has fought his way up to 6th position. He has come right through from 23rd position at the end of the first lap to 6th position on this, the 13th lap. Prost, Lafitte, first and second. Jacques Lafitte harrying Prost every inch of the way.
I do get the feeling that Lafitte can go a good bit quicker than he's going at the moment if he can just get past Alain Prost. But I admire his restraint. He realises that there's a very long way to go in the race, and he's not rushing or any sort of heavy aggressive manoeuvres, taking no risks at all. Lafitte is once again showing that he's a really top driver when his car is working right for him. He's coming up, he's having a little bit of a nibble, just having a look there, but he's not really in place to overtake.
Well, Alain Prost driving an amazing race, because it's only his second appearance here at the Ile Notre Dame circuit. He drove in the McLaren last year, and this year, as I have said, he has won 3 Grand Prix and might well have won 3 more now that he has joined the Renault team, passing Patrick Tambay's stationary car, and Prost, with that incredible passing manoeuvre on the earlier lap, went straight past 2 people into the lead. And now he is having to drive a steady and determined race to keep Lafitte behind him. But that Talbot Matra of Jacques Lafitte is renowned for its superb handling, and you can see there's a bit of a dry line starting to develop on the corner now. Villeneuve is not dropping back at all. John Watson is still hanging in there in 4th position. Nelson Piquet is dropping back in 5th. Didier Pironi is actually, I can tell you from my commentary box, that Didier Pironi is gaining on Nelson Piquet, who is in 5th position.
Yes, the more I look at it as the race goes on, the more I'm pretty convinced, although we don't have any information to confirm it, I'm pretty convinced that Piquet's on the not so wet tyres, and I really do have to say that that's a pretty strange decision. I mean, for a long time now, people have been trying to make intermediate tyres, and they always find there's Lafitte still having a bit of a nibble, but just not quite close enough. And And Prost is really driving as usual. He's proven himself to be a very mature driver. He's completely unflappable under pressure, doesn't seem to make mistakes, because it's not easy driving with somebody like Lafitte breathing down your neck and knowing, as Prost certainly would do, that Lafitte, once passed, is capable of going a good bit quicker than him. But that decision by the Brabham team or by Piquet or whoever made it, if that's what they're doing, seems to be a very silly one. And the only possible defence is that they copied Williams, feeling that they could beat the Williams cars on the same tyres.
And as Jacques Lafitte harries the leader, he goes through. He's forced his way through, and Jacques Lafitte, it's a third race leader. Jacques Lafitte has taken over control of the Canadian Grand Prix, and that is one of the Alfa Romeos. It's Mario Andretti, the American. And look at the trouble he's having to keep way on as he splashes his way. He needs Wellington boots to get through that lot.
Powerboating.
Mario Andretti in his Alfa Romeo powerboat then regains the circuit, as down to second position goes Alain Prost. And just see how Jacques Lafitte has pulled out an enormous lead now, and that Villeneuve has closed right up on the Turbo Renault, and there is John Watson in fourth place. And by the way, Alan Jones has had the humbling experience of being lapped, the reigning world champion, by the first four in the race. Prost in second place, Villeneuve in third, Watson behind them in fourth position, and Villeneuve challenging for second, trying to go through on the inside, but now Prost has got the inside line on the right-hander. Well, Gilles Villeneuve is on his way, challenging for second place in the Ferrari. He's won 2 races this year, don't forget, Gilles Villeneuve, and he's going through behind the bushes. Now, who's going to lead as they come into the corner? It's Villeneuve. When I say lead, I mean lead of these two, because Gilles Villeneuve in the turbocharged Ferrari on his home ground has moved up to second place. Now, is he going to be able to do anything about the leader, Jacques Lafitte, who is now over 8 seconds ahead, with Prost down to third, Watson still in fourth place?
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on the gap, because obviously Villeneuve's going to go a little bit quicker than he has been going now. He's clear of Alain Prost, but of course we mustn't forget John Watson, and that is Nigel Mansell. Yeah, making a little excursion, no damage, he's got going again with no problem. But Watson, of course, is lurking now right behind Prost, and I think he's capable of going quicker than he has been as well. But we'll have to keep an eye on the gap. But I think Lafitte looks pretty confident. He's gone away so quickly. I'll be surprised if Villeneuve can do much about him.
Well, there is Jacques Lafitte, the man who now virtually controls the Talbot Matra team. He has won 5 Grand Prix in his distinguished career. This is actually his 107th Grand Prix, and he's been in racing for 12 years. He's won in Sweden, he's won in the Argentine and Brazil, and Germany and Austria. And now his brother-in-law, Jean-Pierre Jabouille, who raced against him in the Renault team last year, is now virtually, with Jacques Lafitte, joint team manager of the Talbot Matra team, and a very fine job they're making of it. And that's one of the Brabhams. It's Hector Ribac, the Mexican, driving probably in his last Grand Prix but one for Brabham, because Riccardo Patrese will be taking his place next year. Well, there's Lafitte in the background, but Villeneuve is significantly quickest, 1 minute 55.8, and that is nearly 20 seconds slower than the lap record. In fact, it's over 20 seconds slower. The lap record is held by Pironi in a Ligier last year at 111 miles an hour, 128.7. Now look down the track as Lafitte goes round the hairpin, almost at the end of another lap, and there is the battle for second place, with Gilles Villeneuve in the Turbo Ferrari, tiptoeing cautiously round the corner, behind him Alain Prost, and now we are with Nelson Piquet, who is in 5th position in the Brabham. Nelson Piquet, who won at San Marino and in Germany, and is actually in 2nd position in the World Championship, in 5th place in this race, so he's in the running for 2 points. and every point is going to count, because it looks as though the World Championship, irrespective of what happens here in Canada, is going right down to the last race of the year at Las Vegas in Nevada. There goes Villeneuve through in second position. Now the next car through should be, we stay with Nelson Piquet in fifth place. So it is Lafitte leading Villeneuve. There is Nelson Piquet in fifth place. In third position is Alain Prost. Right behind him, John Watson. And behind Piquet in sixth position is Didier Pironi. And both the Williams are well out of the running. Carlos Reutemann still 15th. Alan Jones still 17th. And off the circuit goes one of the Alphas. Couldn't see which one. The Brabham goes through. Down towards us comes 29-year-old Nelson Piquet from Brasilia, although he lives in Monte Carlo at the present moment, in his 48th Grand Prix, anxious literally to keep it on the island, where he is now to get World Championship points.
Yes, Piquet is now no longer in contention for the lead, but he'll probably be pretty happy, because as Villeneuve still attacking like mad. But no.
That's Didier Pironi, Didier Pironi in the Ferrari. The Frenchman is now coming up through the field, and he is right behind Alain Prost. That is how quickly Didier Pironi is going. So the two Ferraris are in the first four places, Villeneuve second and Pironi up to fourth place, as we look at the race leader Jacques Lafitte.
Yeah, that completely fooled me. I was trying to work out how Villeneuve got behind Prost again, but I hadn't noticed Pironi coming up. He was really charging through as well. So the Ferraris may be pretty even in the dry, but the advantage of the turbo engine, of course, doesn't work at a track like this, and particularly in the wet conditions. So the chassis is obviously working pretty adequately well, because they're both right up there. Now, I was saying Piquet, although he must be a bit disappointed to be in fifth place, and obviously he's going to have to work hard if he's struggling on tyres to defend that, but he must be pretty happy, of course, that Reutemann is now quite out of the situation and won't score any points here, so the thing goes down to the wire anyway.
And there is a flash. We haven't seen this, but John Watson has moved up into third position. John Watson in the Marlboro MP4, third behind Villeneuve, ahead of the fourth place man Alain Prost. And with 20 laps gone, Alan Jones comes into the pits. Now, what's your guess? It's tyres. Look, the jacks are going under.
Yes, I think he's been in the pits already, possibly. He's been lapped anyway, and he's had a spin. But of course, the problem for them is they don't have any the real wet, soft, big treaded tyres that fit his car. And I must say that I think it's a pretty poor show by the tyre company. I mean, that situation existed at Monza in the Italian Grand Prix as well. And there's John Watson having a little nibble at Gilles Villeneuve, and he's trying to get round him, but it's a bit of a struggle. Now, I don't understand why the tyre company haven't made some wet tyres the right size for the Williams team. And after all, Reutemann is leading the World Championship, and I would think, therefore, could command the fact of having a couple of tyres made for him. Villeneuve
in second place, and as he goes past the box, there is an intermittent misfire, and John Watson there, number 7 in the Marlboro MP4, the British Grand Prix winner, the man who is in 6th equal position in the World Championship, has taken advantage of that, and they're closing up on one of the Tyrrells that looked like Eddie Cheever to me. John Watson then right with Gilles Villeneuve, Alain Prost and Didier Pironi battling for 4th position. Nelson Piquet is down in 6th place and only just in the points. But the man that we are watching at this particular moment as Nelson Piquet goes through, and he's got Giacomelli behind him. Bruno Giacomelli, the young Italian who has come on very much in the last few races, looks as though he's going to try and take Nelson Piquet and 6th position in the process. Now, the Alpha is going, he's through. Giacomelli is through and upper place. So Bruno Giacomelli, number 23 in the 12-cylinder V12 Alfa Romeo, is up, and he is now into 5th position actually, and in 6th place Nelson Piquet. Well, a race of changes all the way round, but still in front, the indomitable Jack Lafitte, who is pacing himself easily. There's Giacomelli. Well, I've said this a lot over the last few races, and there is Jacques Lafitte, the second of these two cars, who has caught up to Derek Daly, who is in 9th position. Derek Daly in the march, driving superbly. Behind him in 10th place as Jacques Lafitte goes through and waves a hand to say thank you to Derek Daly. Behind Daly in 11th position is Elio De Angelis in the Lotus 87, and they come towards us. Lafitte, Daly already dropping back. Elio De Angelis. Well, Jacques Lafitte making it look very, very easy in the lead. And there go Daly and De Angelis. And up to the right-hander come John Watson in second place, Gilles Villeneuve in 3rd position. So John Watson in 2nd position now, driving magnificently, the British Grand Prix winner. He's behind Mario Andretti. Now Andretti held up Jacques Lafitte for a long time in the race, and the gap now has shrunk. It was as much as 15 seconds at one point, and is Watson going to be able to get past Andretti? Because the gap is only down to 8 seconds between Lafitte, the leader, as Hector Ribac goes off, and John Watson, who's second.
Yes, Andretti's been driving in a most immature fashion for somebody of his experience. He held Lafitte up for many laps and simply wouldn't let him through, despite the marshals waving blue flags and everything, which really is very naughty when you're being lapped. I mean, he should know what it's like, because he's led Grand Prix plenty of times. Whoops, and there is Villeneuve having spun, and looks as if he's made contact with somebody, because he's actually damaged his front wing there. It was a bit droopy before, but that's new additional damage that Villeneuve has incurred there. So it looks as if he had a coming together, and that could well have been with Andretti, which means that Andretti's been holding people up again. He's caused everybody trouble.
Well, Mario Andretti, yes, came together with Gilles Villeneuve, and of course, although this Ile Notre Dame circuit is not as fast as many of them, and that's Nigel Mansell in the pits talking to Nigel Stroud, his team manager on the right, and there is Andrea de Cesaris, who is in 8th position, about to be lapped by Jacques Lafitte. But of course, that twisted aerofoil at the front of Gilles Villeneuve's car, although this Ile Notre Dame circuit, and Nigel Mansell off again, and that's illegal, of course, but understandable under the circumstances for him to get a push.
Well, I think that rear wing got bent by the marshals pushing the car, which is a little bit worrying for the strength of the car.
Well, at the moment then, Jacques Lafitte leading. John Watson is in 2nd place. Gilles Villeneuve is 3rd, and that's Mansell and Prost. Prost in 4th position. And Mansell moved across. It looked to me as though he moved across the line of Alain Prost, who was in 4th position, certain for 3 points. And that has ruined the race for Alain Prost, who is out of it, and that leads up to 4th place.
And quite honestly, Nigel Mansell doesn't see Prost. He didn't look. It's very naughty of Mansell. He was moving onto the dry line without looking in his mirror. It's a terrible mistake by Mansell. It was totally accidental. He didn't do that deliberately, but it really was a terrible mistake. And Alain Prost must be absolutely furious with that, because there was nothing he could do. He was committed to staying on the left-hand side of the track. When once, whoops, and Villeneuve's wing has finally parted company pretty well, all completely with the car. That could be a little bit nasty if that actually blew off. And it must be quite difficult for him to see where he's going, because we can't see his face from a head-on shot of the car. Whoops, there it goes. Oh, he nearly lost control of his car as it happened too. Well, oh dear, all dramas for Villeneuve.
Lap 56 this is, and it looks as though the 2-hour rule, as in the sprint Ferrari. This is a replay now. Let's have a look and see what happened to Gilles Villeneuve. And obviously he's completely unsighted now. He's got that wing sticking up in front of him. Unfortunately for him, it breaks away, drops to the left-hand side of the car, and at least Gilles Villeneuve on lap 56 now can go on untrammeled by that wing. So with the news that it looks as though the 2-hour rule is going to apply and the race will only be about 60 laps. In fact, Jacques Lafitte could well be on his last lap now, because it's only going to be a 60-lap race, leading John Watson in second place, Gilles Villeneuve in third position, and Jacques Lafitte is going to add 9 points, 9 very hard-won points to the 34 he already has. He's on his last lap around this 2.7-mile circuit. That will give him 43 points in all, and Carlos Reutemann gets no points for this race, so Lafitte is only going to be 6 points behind the World Championship leader. It's going to be a tremendously exciting climax to the end of the Grand Prix season in 3 weeks' time at Las Vegas. Really couldn't be better from the point of view of the World Championship, and it couldn't be better now from the point of view of Jacques Lafitte.
Right, he's driven a marvellous race. He's driven really steadily. His car seemed to go very well. He was the class of the field, but he made no mistakes. He was patient, and very mature race by Jacques Lafitte. And of course, if one got exactly the same result as this in Las Vegas, that would in fact make Lafitte world champion. He does certainly have an outside chance of winning the world championship, but what he has very little chance of is getting a wet race in Las Vegas, because it doesn't sort of rain there very often.
Jacques Lafitte's 8th finish in the points this year in 14 now Grand Prix, a quite incredible achievement, and his second victory because he won in Austria, and the other 6 races he failed to finish. So up to within sight of the checkered flag now comes Jacques Lafitte over the line. The Talbot team mechanics will go mad, of course, and justifiably so. Jacques Lafitte waves a hand of victory out of the Talbot Matra. It's his second Grand Prix this year, and that moves him well up in the World Championship table. And a superb second place for John Watson, 6 points. Gilles Villeneuve in third position, Bruno Giacomelli fourth, Nelson Piquet gets 2 points, and in 6th position, Elio De Angelis 1 point in the Lotus. And as Lafitte continues his victory lap, look at the World Championship situation now. Reutemann only 1 point ahead of Piquet. Piquet only 5 points ahead of Jacques Lafitte. Jones and Prost tying for 4th position, Watson 6th, and Gilles Villeneuve in 7th place. A very, very exciting Grand Prix here at Canada. And Jacques Lafitte with John Watson closing right up behind him, continuing that tour lap of his. And it's going to be a very different last Grand Prix of the year at Las Vegas, in the car park of Caesar's Palace on a sinuous circuit. And I wouldn't like to make any prophecies at all about who is going to win the World Championship. I see Lafitte has already got the suspension up on the Talbot Matra as he comes into the pits, having won the Canadian Grand Prix, his second win of the year, and a great victory.